if she really fled the royal family because she wanted her children to grow up in a life that did not require media attention, what she is doing is not the truth. And here is what I think about Meghan, because I think she is a malignant narcissist who is a truly terrible person.
The battle over Archie and Lilibet may have just taken a dramatic new turn. According to royal commentators, Piers Morgan has once again ignited controversy after making explosive claims about what he believes is really happening behind the scenes with Meghan Markle's public strategy involving her children. For years, Meghan and Prince Harry have insisted they want privacy for Archie and Lilibet. Yet every time a new photograph appears, every time a carefully selected family moment is shared, and every time the children become part of a major public discussion, critics immediately ask the same question. Is this really about privacy, or is it about controlling the narrative? Now, according to Piers Morgan, the answer may be more complicated than anyone realizes. His latest comments have sent social media into complete meltdown. Supporters accuse him of unfairly targeting Meghan once again. Critics claim he is simply saying what many people have been thinking for years. Royal fans are dissecting every word. YouTube channels are analyzing every claim. And suddenly, Archie and Lilibet are back at the center of one of the biggest royal debates of the year. What makes this situation so explosive is that it touches on one of the most sensitive topics surrounding the Sussex family. Because if Piers Morgan's theory is correct, then the public may have been looking at Meghan's decisions completely the wrong way. Was there always a larger strategy behind the carefully controlled releases of family photographs? Is there a bigger plan involving Archie and Lilibet that most people haven't noticed? And why are so many royal commentators suddenly talking about the children again? According to insiders, the answers may reveal far more about the future of the Sussex brand than anyone expected. Because behind every carefully managed image, every headline, and every public appearance, critics believe there may be a strategy that has been unfolding for years. And if that's true, the implications could change the entire conversation surrounding Meghan, Harry, Archie, and Lilibet forever. The latest controversy surrounding Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Archie, and Lilibet didn't begin with a palace statement, a royal appearance, or even a new Sussex interview. Instead, according to royal commentators, it all started when Piers Morgan delivered a series of remarks that immediately reignited one of the most heated debates in the royal world. Within hours, social media was flooded with reactions. Supporters of Meghan accused Morgan of launching another attack. Critics argued he was simply raising questions that many people had been asking for years. And before long, what started as commentary had become a full-blown royal firestorm. The reason Morgan's comments generated so much attention is because they focused on one of the most sensitive issues surrounding the Sussexes, the public role of Archie and Lilibet. For years, Harry and Meghan have spoken about protecting their children's privacy. They have limited public appearances. They have carefully controlled photographs. They have repeatedly emphasized their desire to shield Archie and Lilibet from the pressures of public life. Yet according to Morgan, those actions appear to conflict with certain public decisions that continue placing the children at the center of major headlines. That's where the controversy began. Morgan suggested that every time carefully selected family content appears in public, it creates a contradiction that critics find difficult to ignore. According to him, if privacy is truly the priority, then why do rare photographs, carefully managed family moments, and highly publicized references to the children continue generating headlines? Supporters immediately pushed back, arguing that parents have every right to decide when and how their children are seen. Critics, however, claimed Morgan had highlighted an issue that deserves discussion. The reaction was instant. Royal fans flooded comment sections. YouTube creators began posting analysis videos. Social media users debated both sides of the argument. And suddenly, Archie and Lilibet became one of the most discussed topics in the royal world once again. Then came another fascinating development. Many commentators noted that this wasn't really about one photograph or one appearance. Instead, Meghan appeared to be questioning what he described as a broader public strategy. According to critics of the Sussexes, there seems to be a carefully controlled balance between privacy and publicity. According to supporters, that balance is perfectly reasonable because parents should have complete control over how their children are presented to the world. That's why the story exploded. Because both sides believed they were right. Then another question started circulating among royal watchers. Why did Meghan choose to focus on Archie and Lilibet now? Some observers believe growing public curiosity surrounding the children is part of the answer. Despite their limited public exposure, interest in the Sussex children remains incredibly high. Every rare image attracts attention. Every mention becomes news. Every new detail sparks speculation. According to commentators, that level of interest makes the children one of the most powerful subjects in the entire Sussex story. That's why Meghan's remarks attracted such enormous attention. Then came perhaps the most revealing part of all. The debate quickly shifted away from Meghan himself and toward a much bigger issue. What is the long-term plan for Archie and Lilibet? Will they continue living almost entirely outside public view? Will they become more visible as they grow older? Or is there a larger strategy unfolding behind the scenes that the public hasn't fully understood yet? Those questions have no clear answers. But according to royal insiders, they are exactly the questions fueling this latest controversy. And as more commentators joined the discussion, many began wondering whether Meghan's comments had accidentally exposed something much bigger than anyone expected. As Piers Morgan's comments continued spreading across social media, the debate quickly evolved into something much bigger than one interview or one opinion. According to critics of Meghan Markle, the real issue isn't whether Archie and Lilibet deserve privacy. Most people agree they do. Instead, critics argue that the controversy revolves around what they see as a contradiction between the Sussexes' public statements and certain public actions. That's the argument that has fueled so much discussion. For years, Prince Harry and Meghan have spoken openly about the importance of protecting their children from media intrusion. They've described the pressures of public life. They've discussed concerns about excessive attention. And they've repeatedly emphasized their desire to provide Archie and Lilibet with a normal upbringing. Yet according to critics, moments occasionally emerge that appear difficult to reconcile with those goals. Rare family photographs. Special anniversary releases. Carefully selected glimpses into family life. High-profile references during major projects. Each time one of these moments occurs, critics claim it raises the same question. If privacy remains the primary objective, why reveal anything at all? That's the question Piers Morgan reportedly focused on. And according to supporters of his argument, it's a question many people have quietly wondered about for years. Then came the response from Sussex supporters. They immediately challenged the criticism. According to them, there's a major difference between privacy and secrecy. Parents can choose to protect their children while still sharing occasional family moments. Parents can control when photographs appear. Parents can decide what the public sees. And supporters argue that's exactly what Harry and Meghan have been doing. That's why the debate became so intense. Both sides were looking at the same actions, but reaching completely different conclusions. Then another fascinating point emerged. Many royal commentators observed that Archie and Lilibet occupy a unique position compared to most celebrity children. Because of their connection to the royal family, public curiosity is unusually intense. Every image becomes a headline. Every sighting becomes a story. Every mention generates worldwide discussion. According to analysts, that reality creates a challenge few parents ever have to face. How do you balance privacy with inevitable public interest? That's where opinions begin to diverge dramatically. Critics believe Meghan benefits from carefully controlled publicity. Supporters believe she is simply managing an impossible situation as responsibly as possible. Then came another theory that intensified the controversy even further. Some commentators suggested that the children have become symbolic figures in the broader Sussex narrative. Not because of anything Archie or Lilibet have done themselves, but because they represent the future. The future of the Sussex family. The future relationship with Britain. And the future relationship with the royal family. That's why every decision involving them attracts such extraordinary scrutiny. Then attention returned to Piers Morgan's central claim. Was he exposing a contradiction? Or was he simply criticizing parents for making decisions that millions of parents make every day? The answer depended entirely on who was asked. And that's what made the controversy so powerful. Because there was no obvious consensus. Only competing interpretations. Then another surprising reality became impossible to ignore. Regardless of where people stood, everyone was talking about Archie and Lilibet again. The children had become the center of another major royal discussion. And according to some observers, that's exactly why Morgan's comments gained so much traction. Because they touched on one of the most sensitive and unresolved questions in the entire Sussex story. The question of visibility. The question of privacy. And the question of what role Archie and Lilibet may eventually play in their parents' public future. According to royal insiders, that question leads directly to the next major controversy. Because some commentators believe the children aren't just part of the Sussex story. They may actually be at the center of Meghan's long-term strategy. And that's where the debate becomes even more explosive. As the controversy continued gaining momentum, Piers Morgan's supporters began arguing that his comments were never really about individual photographs or occasional public appearances. According to them, Morgan was pointing towards something much larger. A long-term strategy that critics believe has been unfolding quietly for years. That's where the debate became truly explosive. Because according to this theory, Archie and Lilibet are not simply members of the Sussex family. They are also central figures in the public narrative surrounding Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And according to critics, that distinction matters a lot. The theory suggests that every carefully managed glimpse into family life serves a purpose beyond the immediate headline. Every rare family image creates enormous media attention. Every mention of the children generates worldwide discussion. Every appearance sparks days of debate across television, social media, YouTube, and royal news platforms. That's why critics believe the children occupy a uniquely powerful position in the Sussex story. Not because they seek attention themselves, but because public interest in them remains extraordinary. Then came the question that Morgan's supporters keep asking. If Archie and Lilibet generate this much attention, is it possible that their public visibility is being managed as part of a broader communications strategy? That's the theory. And according to critics, it's a theory that explains why seemingly small moments often become major international stories. Supporters of Meghan strongly reject that interpretation. They argue that parents naturally share selected moments from their lives. They argue that occasional family photographs do not prove the existence of any strategy. And they insist that protecting children and sharing limited updates are not mutually exclusive. That's why the argument remains so divisive. Because both sides interpret the same events completely differently. Then another fascinating point emerged. Many commentators observed that the Sussex brand has evolved significantly since Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties. Their projects now include media ventures, public speaking, documentaries, business partnerships, lifestyle initiatives. And according to critics, family stories sometimes become part of that larger public narrative. That's where Morgan's comments gained traction. because some observers believe he was suggesting that Archie and Lilibet help reinforce the image Harry and Meghan want the public to see. An image centered around family, parenthood, personal values, and life beyond royal institutions. Whether that interpretation is fair remains highly contested. But it quickly became one of the most discussed aspects of the controversy. Then another theory started circulating. Some royal watchers believe the real strategy isn't about publicity at all. Instead, they argue it's about control. Control over images. Control over timing. Control over messaging. According to this view, Harry and Meghan aren't seeking attention. They are managing attention. And in today's media environment, those are two very different things. That's why the debate became so complicated. Because critics and supporters weren't even arguing about the same thing anymore. One side saw calculated publicity. The other saw careful protection. One side saw contradiction. The other saw parental responsibility. Then came perhaps the most important realization of all. Nobody outside the Sussex family truly knows what the strategy is. Nobody knows what private decisions are being made. Nobody knows what future plans exist for Archie and Lilibet. Everything remains speculation. And according to royal insiders, that's exactly why the story continues generating so much attention. Because unanswered questions create endless debate. Then attention turned toward the future. What happens as Archie and Lilibet grow older? Will they remain almost entirely private? Will they become more visible? Will they choose their own path entirely? Those questions may ultimately determine whether Meghan's critics or supporters are proven right. And according to many observers, the answer could completely reshape the Sussex narrative. Because if there truly is a long-term strategy, its biggest chapters may still be ahead. As debate surrounding Piers Morgan's comments continued spreading across the royal world, attention began shifting toward a much bigger question. What role will Archie and Lilibet play in the future of the Sussex family? According to some royal insiders, the answer could be far more significant than most people realize. Because while today's headlines focus on Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, and their relationship with the royal family, many commentators believe the next chapter of the Sussex story may ultimately revolve around their children. That's why interest in Archie and Lilibet remains so intense. For years, the children have remained largely out of public view. Every photograph becomes major news. Every mention attracts international attention. Every rare glimpse into their lives generates endless discussion. According to analysts, very few public figures command that level of interest without even making public appearances. That's what makes their position so unique. Then came another fascinating theory. Some commentators believe Archie and Lilibet represent something extremely valuable for the Sussex brand. The future. While public debates about royal disputes often focus on the past, discussions involving Archie and Lilibet focus on what's coming next. Their education, their identity, their connection to Britain, their relationship with royal relatives, their future choices. All of those questions remain unanswered. And according to royal observers, unanswered questions create enormous public interest. That's why some critics believe the children could become increasingly important in shaping how the Sussex family is perceived moving forward. Supporters strongly reject any suggestion of strategic planning. They argue that Harry and Meghan are simply parents raising their children. Nothing more. Nothing less. But critics insist the situation is more complicated. And that's exactly where the controversy continues. Then another important observation emerged. Many royal experts believe Archie and Lilibet occupy a position unlike anyone else in the royal family. They are connected to California, connected to Britain, connected to modern celebrity culture, connected to centuries of royal tradition. That combination makes them fascinating to the public. And according to commentators, it ensures interest in them will continue growing as they get older. Then attention returned to Meghan. Because some insiders believe her long-term public image may eventually become closely connected to how people view her role as a mother. Family has become a major theme in the Sussex narrative. Protection, privacy, parenthood, personal values. These themes appear repeatedly throughout interviews, documentaries, and public appearances. That's why critics believe Archie and Lilibet could play an increasingly important role in future public discussions surrounding Meghan. Not because they are public figures, but because they are central to the story she and Harry have shared with the world. Then came perhaps the most revealing point of all. Nobody truly knows what Meghan's future plans are. Nobody knows how visible Archie and Lilibet will be in 5 years. Or 10 years. Nobody knows how connected they will be to Britain. Or to the royal family. Everything remains speculation. That's why the debate continues. Because both supporters and critics are attempting to predict a future that hasn't happened yet. Then another question began dominating royal discussions. What happens when Archie and Lilibet are old enough to make their own choices? That question changes everything. Because eventually the story stops being about decisions made by Harry and Meghan. Eventually it becomes about decisions made by Archie and Lilibet themselves. And according to many royal insiders, that's the moment that could reshape the entire Sussex narrative. That's why some commentators believe the children may ultimately become the most important part of Meghan's future story. Not because of strategy. Not because of publicity. But because they represent the next chapter. And in every royal saga, the next chapter is often the most important one. As the debate surrounding Piers Morgan's comments continues, a surprising theory has started gaining traction among royal observers. According to some commentators, the real story may not be about what Meghan Markle is doing today. It may be about what happens years from now. That's the possibility that has royal fans paying close attention. Because while headlines continue focusing on current controversies, many insiders believe the future of the Sussex narrative may ultimately depend on Archie and Lilibet. And that's where things become truly fascinating. For years, the public conversation surrounding the Sussexes has centered on Prince Harry, Meghan, and their relationship with the royal family. Every disagreement, every interview, and every public statement has fueled endless discussion. But according to some royal commentators, a major shift could eventually occur. A shift away from Harry and Meghan. And toward their children. That's why some observers believe Piers Morgan's comments resonated with so many people. Not because everyone agrees with him, but because they forced people to think about a question that rarely gets discussed. What happens when Archie and Lilibet grow up? Then came the theory that stunned royal fans. Some insiders believe Archie and Lilibet may eventually become among the most influential members of the wider royal story. Not because of official titles. Not because of royal duties. But because of the unique position they occupy. They are connected to California. Connected to Britain. Connected to celebrity culture. Connected to the monarchy. Connected to two completely different worlds. And according to commentators, that combination makes their future extraordinarily important. Then another fascinating possibility emerged. What if Archie and Lilibet eventually decide they want a stronger connection to Britain? What if they become curious about their royal heritage? What if they choose to spend more time exploring family relationships that have remained distant throughout much of their childhood? Nobody knows. But according to royal insiders, those possibilities are precisely why public interest remains so intense. Because every future decision they make could reshape the narrative. Then attention returned to Meghan. Some critics argue that every carefully managed public appearance involving the children contributes to a long-term story that is still unfolding. Supporters disagree. They insist Harry and Meghan are simply protecting their family while sharing occasional glimpses of their lives. The truth remains unknown. But the speculation continues growing. That's why this debate refuses to disappear. Then came perhaps the most dramatic scenario of all. Some commentators believe the next generation could eventually succeed where previous generations struggled. Not through public statements. Not through media campaigns. But through family connections. Because history has repeatedly shown that relationships can evolve. Perspectives can change. And family bonds can strengthen over time. That's why many royal watchers refuse to rule anything out. Then another reality became impossible to ignore. The public remains fascinated by Archie and Lilibet despite seeing very little of them. That level of curiosity is rare. And according to analysts, it guarantees that interest in their future will only increase as they get older. Every milestone, every decision, every appearance will generate enormous attention. That's why some observers believe the children could eventually become the most important figures in the Sussex narrative. Not today, but someday. Then came the realization that has stunned many royal fans. Perhaps Piers Morgan wasn't really talking about photographs at all. Perhaps he was talking about influence. Future influence. Future visibility. Future relevance. And according to some commentators, that may be the much bigger story hiding beneath the surface. Because while today's headlines focus on Meghan and Harry, tomorrow's headlines may focus on Archie and Lilibet. And if that happens, everything could change. As the debate surrounding Piers Morgan's comments continues generating headlines, many royal insiders believe the biggest question isn't about today at all. It isn't about the latest controversy. It isn't about the latest photograph. And it isn't even about the latest disagreement between supporters and critics of Meghan Markle. According to a growing number of commentators, the real question is much bigger. How will history remember Meghan Markle? And surprisingly, many believe the answer may depend heavily on Archie and Lilibet. That's why this conversation has become so fascinating. For years, public opinion surrounding Meghan has been deeply divided. Supporters view her as someone who challenged royal traditions and fought for personal independence. Critics view her very differently. But according to royal historians, public reputations often evolve over time. The way history remembers someone is rarely determined by a single controversy. Instead, it is often shaped by legacy. And legacy is where Archie and Lilibet enter the story. Then came another important realization. Many of the biggest royal figures in history are remembered not only for their own actions, but for the generations that followed them. Children, grandchildren, family legacies, future contributions. These factors often reshape how historical figures are viewed decades later. That's why some royal commentators believe Archie and Lilibet may eventually play an enormous role in defining Meghan's long-term public image. Not intentionally, not politically, but naturally. Because they represent the continuation of her story. Then another fascinating theory emerged. Some insiders believe that as Archie and Lilibet grow older, public attention will gradually shift away from old Sussex controversies and toward questions about the next generation. What kind of lives will they choose? How connected will they be to Britain? How connected will they be to the royal family? How will they balance their American upbringing with their royal heritage? Those questions may one day become far more important than today's headlines. That's why many observers view the children as such significant figures. Then attention returned to Piers Morgan's original criticism. Whether people agree with him or not, his comments reignited a conversation about the role Archie and Lilibet play in the Sussex narrative. And according to many analysts, that conversation may ultimately outlast the controversy itself. Because the children represent the future. And the future is always more important than the present when it comes to legacy. Then came perhaps the most emotional possibility of all. Some royal fans believe Archie and Lilibet could eventually become symbols of reconciliation rather than division. Not because they would be expected to solve family disagreements. Not because they would carry any responsibility for past conflicts. But because future generations often create opportunities for relationships to evolve. History has shown this repeatedly. Families change. Perspectives change. Circumstances change. And according to some commentators, the next generation often becomes the bridge between different chapters of a family story. That's why many royal watchers refuse to make definitive predictions. Because nobody knows what Archie and Lilibet's future will look like. Nobody knows how they will view their family history. Nobody knows what role they may eventually play. Then came the final realization. Regardless of whether people support Meghan or criticize her, most agree on one thing. The story is far from over. In fact, many observers believe the most important chapters haven't even happened yet. Because while today's headlines focus on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, tomorrow's headlines may focus on Archie and Lilibet. And if that happens, the way history remembers Meghan could change dramatically. That's why royal insiders believe the children may ultimately become the defining part of her legacy. Not the interviews. Not the controversies. Not the headlines. But the future built by the next generation. And according to many commentators, that's the real reason discussions about Archie and Lilibet continue attracting so much attention. Because one day, they may become the chapter that determines how the entire Sussex story is remembered. What do you think? Did Piers Morgan raise valid questions? Or is he unfairly targeting Meghan Markle once again? Could Archie and Lilibet eventually reshape the entire Sussex narrative? And do you believe the next generation will ultimately determine how history remembers Meghan and Harry? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more updates on Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Archie, Lilibet, King Charles, and all the latest royal family developments.